Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go through a discussion that can help us develop positive faith through a very logical conversation. Okay, so positive faith is the opposite of negative faith, which fuels our fears and our anxieties. Okay, so it's really, today's conversation is all going to be about the most powerful way to develop that true, deep sense of security, that we can trust the process, we can trust the universe and everything else. All right. It's also going to be a therapeutic dose of profoundly humbling perspective, which can get us out of our ego, which can be a good thing as well. We're going to draw a lot of awareness on the unseen, unacknowledged support in our lives, which gives us more hope and fearlessness. And we're going to do this through a step-by-step method. And it's all about developing a personal, experiential connection with the supreme intelligence that governs everything. All right. And you can interpret that any way you want. Some people will call that, can think that can be a religious conversation or spiritual, or they call it the universe. Whatever makes sense to you. It's all the same thing, no matter what word you want to use for it. Right. So basically, okay, so basically, we're going to do this because only a true and lasting sense of security can be found with a connection to this supreme underlying intelligence behind everything. Because everything else in the world can't really give us true and lasting security. It's an illusion. Whether it's your money, it will go down with inflation. You know, people aren't alive forever. We can't depend on everyone forever. You know, houses fall apart and crumble. Like, we have all of these different ways we try to get a sense of security. You know, you can even be the best employer in the world, and then for some reason your employer decides to lay you off or whatever. Like, anything can happen in the world, right? So we don't want to draw our sense of security from that, because it crumbles at the touch. And that's why people have constant challenges with anxieties and fear-based emotions and negative faith, because they keep trying to get that sense of security from things that are inherently insecure. They're in constant flux. Okay, now, did any of you ever play hide and go seek growing up?
Yes.
Couple of us. All right, couple of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to play hide and go seek with that supreme intelligence that's behind everything in our manifest creation. Here's a way to think about it. How do we know that the wind exists? How do you know that wind exists? Right?
Because you felt it.
You feel it? That might be one way. What else?
Or you heard it.
Yeah. But how do we know it exists? Like,
you've seen it manifest itself, like in the rustling of the trees. So
yeah, you can see its effect on things. That's
yeah,
big.
its effect. There you go.
Now, it takes faith to believe in wind, because you can't measure it in a test tube. It's not material. All you can do is just see its effect on things. That's it. But we know we know there's a reality to it. Similarly, we're going to look for the effect of that supreme intelligence that's kind of hiding in a game of hide and go seek. And there's many different ways in which this shows up. So we're going to start off with hiding spot number 1. How is this supreme intelligence hiding inside of our physical bodies? Okay, like in our biology. All right. Where can we find evidence of intentional and intelligent support in our own body? Does anyone have any thoughts or examples?
Like when we cut ourselves and it heals by itself, like we're not really doing anything for that to happen.
Yes, we get automatically healed, but if you were to break an inanimate object, it doesn't fix itself, right? It doesn't have that intentional intelligence within it to repair itself. If I break my phone, it doesn't heal itself. There's a healing intelligence that's intentional within each of us. the human ego takes credit for it and says, I did that. And it's like, really? Did you lay down that scab cell by cell, tell them what to do? Did you assimilate the new proteins for the new skin? Like, that is a trick of the ego, is that we tell ourselves we did it. We take credit for it. We're like, no, this is a supreme intelligence underlying this. Any of the other examples? Hide and go seek. Let's see if we can find it. All right, how about this? What about the intelligence that removes impurities from your body?
Yeah, digestion.
You know, so, and digestion's another one. Digestion's another one. So we'll start with impurities. You know, we absorb, just living in the world, we take in toxins and poisons. Do we have to find them in the deepest crevices of our body and actively pluck them out? Or does some force do it for us through sweating, exhalation, bowel movements, urination, everything else? We think we're detoxing. Something is detoxing us, and we take credit. A force works through you all night long to detox you. So when you go to the bathroom in the morning, those are all the poisons and things that don't serve you, that something is collected for you. It was working through you constantly to do it without taking credit, right? Your immune system, like, there's an army being dispatched inside you every second of every day through all of the attacks from the external world, all of the germs and viruses and microbes. Even in your mouth alone, the amount of things attacking you would boggle your mind. You don't have to have all of your attention and consciousness distracted, battling all these micro battles all day long. It's done for you. And we take credit. We think we're doing it. I'm healthy. I'm not getting sick. Well, really, did you do that on your own? Or are you taking credit for that supreme intelligence doing it within you? Like coming up with the antibodies and everything else, right? Like, I mean, all of those things we take credit for, right? Somebody else mentioned digestion. And I think that's a really good point, right? So what is that intelligence that's assimilating nutrients from the stuff we ingest? Like, how is it that your breakfast cereal gets turned into an eyeball and a hand and your nose and teeth? Like, some sort of intelligence is taking the nutrients that are beneficial to you and turning it into heart material and lungs. And it knows when to distribute what. And if you're pregnant, it knows how much the baby gets and how much you get. How much vitamin C goes here, how much goes to you. We're going to divvy it all up so you don't have to think about it. So you don't, you know, like, all of this is intelligently being done for us, right? And then transporting it to the body parts that need it.
This is all microbiology. This is all science. It's measured. It's been described. It's been tested. You have a science book that will explain all.
Chris, you just went quiet there. All right. I think we just lost Chris's connection. We'll wait for him to rejoin here in a second. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So we're talking about microbiology. All those things you're describing are microbiology. It's scientifically proven. It's written. It's measured. It's consistent. It's a law. So that's what that is. But when you're talking about, what I'm thinking where you're trying to go is that this type of intelligence that you're speaking of is something more more intrinsic. It is more intuitive. It is less explained through science, but yet it still exists. It's intuition. It's things that are transit, that you don't see, you don't feel, but they're still there. So it cannot be explained by science, but it is still there.
Science describes the effects. Science describes the antibodies and this and that. But
how they work.
what is the governing force behind all of this stuff? Once you go layers and layers deeper in science, you find the supreme intelligence hiding.
Yeah.
Because eventually science can't explain it. And we'll get to actually what scientists have said on this subject. We'll chat about that tonight. Because what the scientists will say is actually very interesting on all this stuff. Right? But that's a good way of saying it. This is going a layer deeper than that. So some other spots hiding inside of us is, there's an intelligence that's operating our organ function, how our organs adapt, how our pupils adapt to light and dark, the governing intelligence behind all the cells in our body to make sure they're all doing what they're supposed to do. We think that we are like the governing intelligence of it all, but it's all being done on our behalf within what we identify as our body, right? So, there's the intelligence that's assimilating and solidifying our body parts. But here's the thing. There are all these, if you want to go deep on science, you get down to the level of molecules, okay? You get straight down to the level of molecules. But at what point do all these undifferentiated molecules become all of these specific intelligent things? What's to say these molecules become eyeball, and these molecules become teeth, and these molecules become a human, right? So that's where we're going a layer below what we can measure. And, there was an example that was given, and it was given by, I think his name was Fred Hoyle, and he was a scientist. He was a British astronomer, okay? And he basically said that, what we're experiencing with the human body and everything else and all of the elements, like this event of a human body is about as likely as assembling a Boeing 747 by sending a whirlwind tornado into a junkyard. So all of these pieces and bits and molecules lining up in this intelligent, self-sustaining way, he's like, that's how, it takes more faith to not believe in this supreme intelligence, because you have to deny all of this evidence of the effects of it out there, right? So the strictly materialists really struggle with this a lot, because there's just so much profound evidence that there's something more than strictly materialistic things going on. And a further example would be all these building blocks of life that have become us. If you believe in just the strictly materialistic point of view, that's like dumping a pile of bricks on the ground and it assembles into a cathedral. Like, this stuff just doesn't happen on its own, do you think? Right? So is this an existence of there's some sort of order behind it? Or is this just strictly chaos, materialistic chaos that we live in? The people who subscribe to this kind of chaos attitude always struggle with negative faith and anxiety. They worry about the future because they don't feel supported. Because in their reality, they've been taking credit for everything. So in their reality, there isn't this supportive intelligence in their life. And so that can be a very scary place to live, because when the ego assumes credit for all this stuff going on inside of us, then what are we eliminating? We're eliminating this supportive force that's powering all of these abilities from within us. So that's hiding spot number one. Hiding spot number one is the handiwork. Our body is like the storehouse for the handiwork of this supreme intelligence. Okay. Now, there is also biblical references to this for those who really like and appreciate the Bible. And I respect you wherever you're at of this. Luke 17:21 would say the kingdom of God is within you. And then I think 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, know you not, ye are the temple of God, the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. This could be equated with a very practical, experiential realization of those quotes. Or you can strictly look at it as just logical, experiential, however you want. right? So this is just playing hide and go seek with something bigger than us that's going on. So that's hiding spot number one. Anyone have any thoughts, reflections, anything you want to add on hiding spot number one?
I just think it's great in general to, I mean, I was going to do a philosophy major in college. I ended up doing a minor, but there's always like the design argument. Like if you looked at the inner workings of a watch and you look at the inner workings of like the universe, and how everything works together as you're looking at it on a macro level, obviously with the body, but also in a micro level, but also in a macro level, like it all works together. And they would presuppose that there was some kind of an intelligent designer. But yeah, I actually like to ask people questions when I teach art. I'm always trying to get at things that you can't see. I'm always trying to make images of qualities that you can't see. And so one of the questions I like to ask people is, is love real? And they'll say, well, yeah, sure, love's real. It's like, well, what does it look like? What color is love? It's real, but you don't see it. And of course, submerged at the level of, I guess what I would call the spiritual reality that is. We see everything at the surface level with the five senses, and it's really interesting to look where quantum physics is headed in saying that the further you look, the smaller you look, the more that you realize it's all like empty space, and that matter that we think is this like all potent thing is really just mostly empty space, and that it's energy, it's thought, it's all these things that you can't see that have the the spiritual reality or being. So yeah, I just find the whole topic fascinating.
Yeah, and this topic has gone by many different terms. One is yoga. This topic is considered ancient yoga, which is really how to rise above the delusion of separation with the supreme intelligence and realize your oneness with it. That's the ancient teaching of yoga, not really like stretching in a room with exposed ceiling beams and stuff like that. Like that's kind of like what we've turned yoga into, I guess. But the other term for it is self-realization, which is kind of knowing your oneness with that supreme intelligence, because it's been said that one of the major misery-making delusions is seeing matter without the presence of a supreme intentional intelligence. That's one of the major delusions or false judgments in the human experience. And the ego principle of I do is the root cause of a lot of this, right? And this is ancient stuff that we're talking about. And so we can call it whatever we want. It's a conversation people have been having for thousands of years, because on the other side of playing hide and go seek really comes an unbreakable sense of security and positive faith. And that's the point of playing hide and go seek with this, right? So unless anyone else, Patty Baker's coming back in. Why don't we go on to, and there's so many different ways we could talk about hiding spot number one endlessly, because there's so many different things, like what kind of supported and guided our physical growth from being a single microscopic cell every step of the development away to look at us now. We're giants compared to what we used to be. Like there's an inner guidance that's rebuilt us with a consistent form so that our friends and family can recognize us still, and then there's an intelligence to it. Like the nose is like this. If the nose was upside down, that wouldn't make sense. We have two eyes. That's a good idea. Two ears, like two lungs, two kidneys. If we were the ones designing ourselves, like arts and crafts, human beings would be walking monstrosities, multiple sets of arms and legs and like an elbow in the middle of the face, whatever. We've all been to art class. If we had to design our own body vehicles, it would be, thank goodness we don't, right? Because our capacity to really be clumsy with this kind of stuff would really be tragic. So let's go on to.
Not to mention you have to justify your choices. Just ask any platypus.
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Well, like you said, if you can put yourself together, but then it's like you have to explain what you did and why, it would be very difficult. Now you have a mammal running around with a bill about the size of about 3 feet. It's like, and lays eggs. It's like, who the hell came up with this idea?
Oh man.
It's all
Well,
fun and games until it actually happens.
yeah. Oh man. And when I see something like the platypus, and there was an engineering thought behind the platypus. There had to have been. It's intentional. That bill, the laying the eggs, the goofy mannerisms of it, to me, it proves that that engineer has a charming and delightful sense of humor. Like, hey, you're going to live with a platypus on this planet. How do you like that? You know, like, to me, it kind of shows, when I see stuff like that, it just delights me on the inside. Stuff like that showing up. All right, let's go on to hiding spot number 2. And somebody's got, okay, I just heard a little bit of audio, but it's good now. Hiding spot number 2 is, how is this supreme intelligence playing hide and go seek inside our thoughts and emotions? How is it showing up inside our thoughts and emotions for things that we take credit for, that if we trace it back wasn't really logically us?
I think that Chris made a good point tonight about how, this thought popped into his head to go to this restaurant, right? And then this thought popped into his head, birthday, and it happened to be, a girlfriend from his past. So that is a example for me just tonight about these thoughts are not our own, but they're kind of downloaded or dropped into us.
Absolutely. There wasn't a logical step-by-step process for that thought to manifest. Yet we just assume, well, there must be. I had this thought, like, I have a great idea, So sometimes we get confused and we don't realize, like, somebody just put this thought into my head. Somebody, something, some force somewhere put this thought into my head. Love it. Great example. And what about some of those hidden whispers that just show up? A good idea, or the awareness that we've done something wrong that we shouldn't have. We feel it with our whole being right after, right? Like our consciousness or our conscience. Sorry, it almost serves like it's like an inner coach. It's kind of like a spiritual GPS, which lets you know when you're off course with who you want to be. It's like, whoa, get back on route. You shouldn't have said that thing to that person. Like, we're being guided by something outside ourselves that's communicating into us when we break our own rules and value and higher principles, right? We take it for granted. Chris mentioned the intuition. Think about how your intuition serves you. Is that from the flesh and body, or is that from some sort of alternate realm? Chris, I just got to mute you for a second. I'm just getting a little bit of wind, which I love because it reinforces the relevance of this conversation, because it's all about, we know wind is real. As Joel would say, wind doesn't have color. You can't see wind, but we see its effect on things. And that's basically what we're talking about here. So what about the inspiration that rushes into us to say something good, to do something good or virtuous for somebody? And we feel great after we did it. And we're like, that rush of inspiration came through me, but not really from me. I didn't logically say, I'm going to decide to have an inspiration later today. Let me build up to it. It's going to be this. We don't do it in a step-by-step process, right? So there's a lot of these things that can really serve us. That are
one thing I've shared in the past is I've always been the best in the family at finding things, and what that looks like is usually when I can't find something, I have to quiet my own thinking and listen to that little angel thought that comes that says, "Oh, look over there." And I mean, this happens literally like, I don't know, 10 to 15 to 20 times a week. And I don't logically think, oh, it must be over there because I didn't actually put it there. It was like one of my kids moved something, somebody else lost something. I've gone into people's houses where they had, a mother had like lost her credit card and I found it for her. And I just, asked her a few questions, and it's like, I didn't do that, but there's those little angel messages that when we quiet our own thoughts, that, whether you call it conscience or, I love the fact that we have a conscience or a moral barometer that tells you that, because if we didn't, society would kind of be like a free for all. I mean, not that
It's already a free for all, even though we all have this navigation system.
but it helps, right?
Right? Like, but it's like that's that supreme intelligent navigation system.
Moral compass.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's a whole bunch of other things like gut feelings or that tremendous sense of peace and calm that can come over you. And I'm not talking about the one that comes from just drinking too much, so there's also forgetfulness can be a gift. We forget the stuff that holds us back, like past pain, disappointment, guilt, regret, shame. It allows us to re-experience things we previously enjoyed. I love rewatching a good movie from the past that I forgot about. I love doing that. Every year I'll rewatch movies like Back to the Future or What About Bob or whatever, like old favorites.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, Forrest Gump. That's my wife's favorite movie. Absolutely. Like all of those, but then also, so forgetfulness can strategically benefit us. But we don't decide what we forget. It happens for us, right? And sometimes we forget past traumas until later on in life, you're in a position when you have a proper, wise, and worthy guide that can bring it up to your awareness so that you can transcend it and heal it. But you were made able to forget it until you had that moment in therapy. Beautiful. Like, how does that happen? That's so good. We were spared from so much suffering through forgetfulness of that kind of stuff. And for those who believe in the doctrine of reincarnation, forgetting past lives might be a way to forget the guilts and shames of past lives, right? So it's like, which past lives could be very dark with a lot of that stuff, right? So, but how can the power of memory benefit us? We can take in new info, learn from past mistakes. Through memory, we can relive the happiest moments of our life, relive the most loving moments of our life, the moments when we just laughed our heads off. We can relive these and change our state of being strategically. Through reliving these emotional states, we can re-experience those emotions again, time and time again, which is such a tremendous gift to have, right? And then it was like the power of remembering, I think the supreme intelligence works through this. How did Chris remember that it was his friend's birthday, the friend that had passed away? It happened in the moment after every other coincidence had manifested. Did he decide, he's like, am I going to look at memory? Did he go through his birthday, notebook and be like, oh, there's a birthday today? No, he just remembered it was a birthday, right, Chris?
No, I didn't remember at all. Zero.
Yeah. And then
until that came to my head, happy birthday. Oh, wait. Then it made me think about birthdays. But until then, nothing. I didn't remember it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny how a lot of these things happen, right? Remembering something important just in the nick of time. Like I forgot to lock the door. I left my wallet at home and whatever else, right? So a lot of this, is this coming from the flesh, or is this coming from some other dimension in which we're supported, right? Even our emotions can send us signals on what's going on, right? So that's hiding spot number 2 is thoughts and emotions. Does anyone have any key takeaways, any additional comments on that?
Is that like intuition?
Yes, intuition, for sure. And what does intuition mean to you, Chris?
Intuition is like when Joel said, when you quiet your mind enough, you can hear those other signals showing up and you can actually respond to them. Sometimes you get those signals, but your brain is not strong enough to pull them in to act on them. Like when you accidentally delete a voice message you shouldn't have, like you sometimes just forget. But intuition is a quieting of the mind and body to such a level that you can hear a different wavelength of activity. around you. And when you hear that different wavelength of activity, you're now in tune with something that's much more aware and much more sensitive than just what your five senses can tell you. You've now moved on to your sixth sense and your seventh sense at that point.
Yeah. Love it. So I can articulate that into a very brief form if we want. And I call an intuition a soul knowing. It's just a knowing coming from the soul. And here's the thing. A lot of times people confuse ego-driven imagination with intuition. They'll say, well, I have an intuition that I'm the best person for this job, and I have an intuition I should do this and that. So learning to be clear on when it's intuition and when it's our imagination, driven by our preferences and ego, takes some fine tuning to learn that. And I'm just going to mute you for a second, Chris. Just we're getting some background noise, but I love you, brother. I love you. Just got to mute you so we can get some clear audio. Please unmute yourself whenever you got something to say. We'll do a separate discussion on intuition for sure. It's worthy of its whole other conversation. It's a very deep subject and learning to really hone that craft. Yeah.
I had lost a pair of really nice sunglasses about 3 weeks ago. I have no idea. I went back to the restaurant where I thought I had taken them off, left them on the table with my friend. I called her. I'm like, do you remember I had these glasses? I can't find these sunglasses. So fast forward 3 weeks and I went in to get my nails done, and I look over and sitting on this counter was like, oh, my glasses. And I look around, I'm like, hey, those are my glasses. And they were like, oh, great. They've been sitting here for a while. We've been hoping that they would be for somebody. And I'm thinking, why are they in this out of the way place that all of a sudden I would look over and see them? It's not like they were in the front where everybody could see. It was just tucked over in the corner, but it was on the counter. And I'm like, man, this is so awesome. Thank you, God. I found my glasses. And then like 2 days later, because again, I've been looking now for like a month for my a key that goes into my safe. It's a dual, so it's got numbers and a key. So I can't open it if I ain't got the key. I can't find the key. Now I know I didn't put it in the safe because you can't close it and lock it without the key. So I can't find this thing. And all of a sudden I'm somewhere else, and the thought came to my head, go and look behind the safe on the floor. And here, when I had put some things on top of that safe, it shoved back and down. So I know these things happen not because I thought, oh, maybe it was not my intellect that caused that to happen. There was something else that was speaking to me, downloading this to me, and I am grateful for that. So that's the other side of that for me, is just an acknowledgement of it and then a gratefulness behind it.
Love it. I love that it's coming in such a practical way too. Like, that benefits your life, which shows you're supported. Right? Just those little reminders, it might seem like a little deal, but what it represents is a big deal. What it represents is unseen forces and a hidden hand supporting you in life, right? Love it. Let's go on to hiding spot number 3. How is the supreme intelligence playing hide and seek inside of other beings? Okay. Think about that. How is the supreme intelligence playing hide and seek inside of other beings? Anyone have any preliminary thoughts on that?
Human beings or animals?
We're going to say human beings.
So both.
But you can say both. Yeah, whatever you want.
I mean, you're talking about that sudden rapport and that sudden bond you create with someone. Okay. I was walking in a hotel one day, and I came across this Iranian guy. He and I just started talking. We talked for an hour, like we're freaking brothers. We just met each other. No clue who we are, no clue of anything. And it was just this instant bond of trust and comfort with each other. It was just totally normal. I had to tell the person I was visiting, hey, this is what just happened. This is amazing. And I think when you're looking for that supreme intelligence in other people, it already knows it's there. They already find each other. on almost like a molecular level. That's when you find your soulmate. That's when you find someone that you're going to have a long relationship with or a long friendship with. And you already know that within the first 30 seconds or less.
Mm-hmm.
And people like that in our lives that we met by chance, and they've been in our lives ever since. And there were the same people that when you don't see for 2 or 3 years and you come across them again, it's like nothing ever happened. It was like you just picked right up where you left off, like it was nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love this. You know, the source of that instant trust and comfort that came with that person. Now, I would say this, and that's one way it can show up. I would also say this. Oh, I'm just going to mute Chris for a second there. Love you, brother. Every time I mute you, I'm just going to remind you how I feel about you. There you go. All right. Here's something to think about. Who placed the love for you inside the hearts of other people? How is the love of other people just the love of the supreme intelligence in disguise? Did they constantly make the choice, or did they fall in love? It came over them, right? How did parental love get inside your parents? You know, like we call it like instincts and this and that, but really it's like, you know, what is it that makes somebody sacrifice time and sleep and put up with you through all your neediness and all of this and just that tremendous love? But some sort of an intelligence put that love in there so that you would be here in this conversation today. You know?
I think for me, you know, I was not in the UPW group that you all were in, but because of just this premonition, I guess, to invite me over to this space, Brendan, I mean, I'm grateful to be here. And if it wasn't for you having that being obedient to the download, you know, to extend that to me. And I believe that even the love that we have for each other in this group is dynamically driven by something that's greater than each one of us. So, you know, that's happening on so many levels and in so many areas in our lives. It's just to the nth degree. But those are a couple examples that I can think of here.
No way, I had a similar experience. Like, I was in this UPW event with like gazillions of people, and I just happened to get paired up with this one guy named Brendan. And out of all the people that got paired up with through the 4 days, I was like, this little voice is like, I gotta reach out to that guy and follow up with him. There's something there.
I love it. I love it. And you know, Patty, and we're such great friends now. And it was a voice of intuition. And I got it very clear. Actually, when I saw your picture, it was before we even started talking. And it was just like, oh, she's coming to join us. All right, done. So although we've never talked about it, how did Patty end up? She wasn't in room 5. How did Patty end up with all of us? And she's such a key member, right? Intuition. That was it. And trusting the voice of intuition and knowing it was intuition, right? So, yeah. And so we might ask ourselves, you know, in the same way that we're supported on the inside through the beating of our hearts all day long, something is beating our hearts for us. You know, something is breathing us when we're sleeping. Somebody is digesting our food and fighting off foreign invaders, but some force is doing it, but it's also doing it for everyone we care about, right? They're being supported in the same ways that we're being supported, right? So that's another way to think of how this intelligence is hiding out inside other people, right? But also, you know, inspiring people to love us when we're the most unlovable. If you think about the times in life when we were most difficult to love, there were still people that just had this profound love for us and just saw the best in us when we didn't see the best in ourselves. Where did that come from? There wasn't any evidence of it. We weren't being the best version of ourselves. How are other people to see this side of us and believe in it? Right? It was, you might say that that came through them, but not necessarily from them. You know, and think about, you know, the people you care about in your life. Every masterpiece of art, Charmaine was talking about the Van Gogh exhibit. You saw all these beautiful pieces of art. There was an artist that conceived of them, right? But there's also an artist that conceived of all the masterpiece people that exist in your life. There was an artist that decided on Chris's eyes. An artist said, these deep, reflective, wise eyes, this is what Chris is going to have. There was an artist that decided on Patty's warming smile and Joel's uplifting giggle. And then just the beauty that Charmaine represents with her beingness, just her strength of spirit and that sort of calm presence and that keen intellect she brings. Like just all these different people that we enjoy, they're almost the handiwork of some sort of a master architect that decided, hey, even though you're all different, you're all going to get 2 arms and legs, okay? Everyone here in this group, for various reasons, you know, some are going to be this tall and this tall. This is all intentional. And we don't know all the reasons in the process behind it, but there's something very intentional going on, right? I think this too, like, we also see this supreme intelligence showing up through the love of strangers, right? Can anyone think of a moment when a stranger really went out of their way to show love for you, and it was just really love working through them, but it didn't really seem logical that a stranger would care? Can anyone think of an example on that?
Repeat that one more time.
Any examples of when a stranger might have expressed love and caring for you?
I can remember one when I was a kid. It was interesting. It was New Year's Eve. I couldn't have been more than like 6, but I remember like my mom, I was living an hour south of San Francisco, and we took this train New Year's Eve up to San Francisco. And on the train was this essentially probably a homeless person, but you could tell that he held himself like you wouldn't have known that from the way he held himself. Like he was very, very kind, very, he just held himself well. But so he, here's this little 6-year-old me, and he decides to he gave me like a silver dollar, and it was just out of the blue, and I just kind of light up. And he did it again, and I forget how many times. It was probably a couple of them, and I think of that now, and it's just so cool to see kids light up out of the blue, and to see the possibility that people are inherently kind even when nothing's there's no reciprocity or instilled like you have to do something for me, but just out of the blue you do something for somebody. So yeah, I think there's lots of random acts of kindness all over the place that attest to that.
And how the supreme intelligence was inspiring them to do that in that moment, right? Love how it's hiding behind it. I know for me, one of the examples is very early in my career. I was 23 and working, and I had all of these high-level people in society, like one of the top cardiologists in Canada and this super successful CEO, and they all saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And they're like, hold on, Brendan, we believe in you. In particular, the CEO, his name was Ed Buffett, okay? He ran a big company. He was really well known and everything else. And then he would bring me out to parties and hook me up and network me with people. And he would give me books and have me over. He had me at his daughter's wedding, and he had me at all these work parties and everything. He was always almost mentoring me and everything else, and always trying to get me to see whatever he saw in me at the time, right? I was just a young, awkward, newly in the workforce, and something came over him and he wasn't doing this with other people. Everyone in business would have given whatever they could to be able to rub shoulders with this guy because he was so successful and so respected everywhere. And it was but he thought, and I was his personal trainer initially, and he just always had me asking my opinion on everything, getting me to read the same books and getting me to share my wisdom with him and what I got out of it, and him, and having deep conversations. And then I remember, actually, it was an intuition. One day I was supposed to meet up with him one morning, and I got the intuition not to go. I hadn't done this, been meeting up with him for 7 years, got the intuition not to go. Didn't show up. I didn't even give him a note. I wasn't showing up. I pulled a no-show. Okay. He died that morning. He would have probably died when I was there. It was around the same time. He totally, and I would have probably thought I had something to do with it. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, he died that morning. And it was like, it was something, he was sick for a little while anyway. So perhaps it was coming, but it was an intuition that spared me that experience of whatever inappropriate guilt I might have felt. I might have felt I killed him or something. Or maybe I gave him an exercise and killed him. Right. But even that was a gift. And I never really thought about that till this moment, sharing this conversation, how that intuition itself might have been a gift. Right. But where did that intuition come from? It's not even like my character. You know, I'm always very reliable. And so I'm like, me just pull a no-show on somebody? It's ridiculous. Right. But I did. And it ended up being like, who knows what that would have spared, the experience it spared me from. So I think there's a lot of this. I think the love of the supreme intelligence gets sent to us through many different living instruments. Strangers, parents, friends, pets, all these different things. But it's almost like the same sunshine coming through stained glass window. It comes through in many different shapes and sizes and colors. It's the same sunshine, right? And that's what we get to experience, right? So, and it shows up in the wisdom of our teachers and mentors and guides and role models, and all of the resources that are contributed to us in society. When I think of all the things in society, somebody was made passionate about plumbing, so we get to benefit from indoor plumbing and toilets. Somebody's life passion was toilets and manufacturing it, selling it. So we have toilets, so we don't have to go outside. Somebody was passionate about electricity, so we can have like the heating and the lighting. Somebody was passionate about building internet, so we can all connect. All of these people were given these different passions to be able to create this supportive community in which we all get to benefit from the legacy of all these individuals who've devoted themselves to all these things that support us, all these modern day conveniences and everything else. But also, and we can talk about beings as nature and animals, you know, like think about we know the wind exists through its effect on things. And at the basic level, according to science, it's all just molecules. What makes some molecules become flowers, right? Like, where does that architect design come from? You know, like, where is the engineer behind forest ecosystems with like the squirrels bury the nuts and seeds, which lead to more trees and all of these different, and the pollinators are helping all the plants out. And it's just this delicate ecosystem with everything. And all of it's in such a perfect balance. And I remember at one point, people decided mosquitoes were all bad. So they used like DDT or something to kill them all off. And I think the fishermen were involved in this somehow. It's like, we're just going to kill the mosquitoes, are too bad. And then what happened was the frog population went down because the mosquitoes went down. So did the birds. And so did the fish population, which affected the very industry that had lobbied for this and supported this movement to kill off the mosquitoes. They realized everything's connected to everything else in such a perfect balance. Right? So, and some people might say, well, mosquitoes are a bad thing. Like, why is this architect, if it's so supreme and intelligent, why did it design mosquitoes to annoy the crap out of us? And it's like, well, clearly it's to remind you that this reality isn't our true eternal home. So you don't get too attached to it. There has to be some annoyances here, because as much as we have these annoyances, a lot of people experience spiritual amnesia. And they just think that this is the ultimate reality. And if you think that in this reality, which is subject to entropy, where things fall apart and age and rust and decay, and you think this is the ultimate reality, you're going to have negative faith and live in fear. Because if this is all there is and everything's falling apart and aging, like, good luck finding inner peace if that is the perspective you pledge your allegiance to, right? And just think about all the people that have, helped and supported you, in your life. Some of them are still with you. Some are far away. Some have moved on. All of those who have cared for you and encouraged you and wanted the best for you and devoted themselves to you. Just think about how this great supreme intelligence was working through them. All right. So that's hiding spot number 3. Anyone have any thoughts on hiding spot number 3? Any key takeaways?
I think that's a very critical spot, looking for that intelligence in others. And like you said, how a lot of us met through UPW. I actually met Marge, my fiance, through UPW. Actually, she found me. Out of 5,000 people, she managed to connect with me so that we were together. So we've known each other for about 11 years now. So that is so potent and so critical, but yet it happens so randomly. And it really does help bring people together. I mean, I would have never met her if I didn't go to UPW, if she didn't find me out of 5,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how those relationships build. You and that CEO. There was something about you two that connected and gelled with chemistry. This is when people say you guys have chemistry. That's that trying to explain that intuition, that connection. That's exactly where that part lives, is in chemistry. When two people can become so connected with each other instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a beautiful, it's delicate, yet it is durable. It is something that
it's fragile because of how it connects, but once it connects, it's like super glue. It really cannot be unglued. It's practically indestructible. Your relationship with that person's indestructible. And that's what shows that comes from that deep part.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it. You're transitioning us into hiding spot number 4, which is perfect. I love it. How is the supreme intelligence playing hide and go seek through the supportive circumstances and events of life, such as coincidences? Maybe you'd go to a restaurant on an intuition, and just by coincidence, one parking spot opens up. And then you go inside, and by coincidence, there's one seat available in this busy restaurant. Chris? Maybe that restaurant is called the Iggy's, and maybe it's a seat by the tiki bar. And then maybe you have the best fish you ever had.
When you see these things happen, when you're threading a needle like that, it is happening intentionally. It's just too many random things lining up to make that event happen. That's how you know if it was planned. You may not know it in the time, but at some points, like, how did all these things happen at once in that sequence? The timing of it has to be there. The fact that I drove by, it was all full. I drove by a second time. A place just happened to open up. And the last time I went there, she said she summoned me to go there. I said, no, I'm tired, I'm going home. So you're going to ignore a directive from her in the afterlife. Yeah, no, I'm not. So I turned around and went back. And I ended up, then by the time I get there, I met a couple. I told you about this. That was the couple that really helped me with my esteem, because I was feeling so low. But you're really attractive. You really should have somebody. So this whole random story happened. And it's like, clearly she orchestrated this to happen. The fact that I took time to get down there, the time that I waited, the time I finally showed up at the tiki bar. This couple just happened to sit next to me. All those pieces had to be timed. When you talk about that gentleman in the hotel that I met, the fact that we happened to pass each other in that moment, he's there with his family. He should be distracted, but he wasn't. The fact that I just happened to be there in that moment at that time, at 6:10 when we passed each other. If it was at 4:45 or 6:20, we would have missed each other. It would never happen. When you see timing happening in that way, you know someone has set that up for you. Because it's not only the sequencing, but the timing of that sequence of these events to happen.
Mhm.
So when you're saying that that's another place where this is where that intelligence shines, and in fact showboats in some cases, because for it to arrange all of those sequencing and the timing and the connection and the people to make that work in that moment.
Yeah. You know, you might say that these coincidences are the Supreme's intelligence's way of wanting to be found in hide and go seek. Because, you know, have you ever played hide and go seek and you're hiding so good that it just gets like, you're like, come on, find me. I don't want to hide here forever. Come on. Like, it's almost like, all right, here's a coincidence. Come looking for the source of this. You know, you talked earlier about scientists. Who might you say is one of the most considered the smartest scientists of our time, or of all time? Einstein. Okay, perfect. Let's get Einstein's take on this. Einstein commented on this very thing as the smartest scientist. Here's what Einstein said. Coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. Albert Einstein. He actually said God.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scientist, what considered the top scientist. He used it. We're calling it supreme intelligence. He's calling it God, right? Yeah. So that's, what do you guys think of that, right? So now here's the thing. Science tells us that everything, solids, liquid, gas, atoms, electricity, light, science says all of it's just different rates of vibration. But why does a tree become a tree? Why does a cat become a cat? It's all just different rates of vibration. Why does water become water? You know, why did they all not stay the same undifferentiated rate of vibration as would have naturally happened without the intervention of a supreme intentional intelligence? Right? How is it that all this stuff is manifesting in so many unique ways that all blend and work together? Right? Like gases and earth and human beings and all these things that come together. What caused it all to differentiate into all these forms of matter and living creatures and everything else? Can all of these intelligent, unique, harmonious manifestations come out of nothing? Right? That's why it's considered one of the biggest delusions somebody can suffer with, is to just think that it's just everything is strictly material, because it'll lead to mental anguish. Even if there's no such thing as a supreme intelligence, if you weigh the risk to benefit ratio, you're better off to believe in it because of the mental health benefits. If you believe everything is chaotic matter, then it's like believing that we're all on a cosmic bus and nobody's at the wheel. You're going to be like, when are we all going to crash with disaster? But that's the constant state of dread that you can live with when you've got the extremely materialistic mindset with that stuff, right? So, you know, what about all these everyday miracles that support us, right? All these everyday miracles that support us. Thinking back to the kindness of strangers, I used to ride my bike around the lake at the cottage as my form of exercise, because these turtles used to always cross the road. And so I'd always stop and take the turtles and help them cross so they wouldn't get run over. So that way I was working on my fitness, but I'd also save a few turtles every time I can, right? And then one morning, this big, huge transport truck came by, and then all of a sudden I see this heaping something on the road, and I go over and it's a great, huge turtle that got run over. And the blood is coming out, so I know it's fresh. And then immediately I think it's not the trucker's fault. The trucker is serving a purpose in society that supports the lifestyle I enjoy. We need truckers. I'm as responsible for this as the trucker, because the trucker is fulfilling a benefit to me in society and the rest of society through their supportive role. So it's not the trucker's fault. But I was like, what do I do with this? What's the meaning of this turtle, right? And it was full of these little ping pong ball eggs. I'm like, oh my gosh, she was going to lay her eggs. So I was like, okay, I'm going to help her lay her eggs, maybe like fulfill her last dying wish. So I grab the eggs and I have a hole and I'm burying the turtle's eggs. And then a car pulls up and stops. And it's this couple, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, we saw the blood on the road and your bike is down." And I look at my hands, they're covered in guts, and I'm on the side of the road. They're like, "We thought you got hit by a car," right? And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. It's the love of strangers showing up in that moment." But then I was like, I don't get the purpose of that turtle dying. It was this great big dinosaur looking reptile with these little ping pong ball eggs inside. And I thought about it for weeks. And I'm like, you know what? I asked the Supreme Intelligence, I'm like, can you just let me know what I'm supposed to take away from that experience? It just seems so pointless that this turtle had to die. And then the intuition just hit me. These ping pong eggs become a massive turtle. That's a miracle. That's like a magic trick. How does this thing that looks like a ping pong ball become a great big turtle? Just like the wind, there's something behind it that's creating that effect of turning this into this. But this is happening every day all around us. Little acorns become trees. I had a really funny experience. I was feeding geese, Canada geese, and they went into my pocket and they pulled out my bag of sunflower seed and it spilled on the ground. Okay, these little sunflower seeds. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so cute, pickpocketing me, right? So then that happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago that happened, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Then I went back to that same spot, okay? And I went back a couple days ago, and I'm just trying to see if I can find it. I'm not going to be able to find it. I got so much like wildlife stuff and whatever on my phone. I can't find it. But I went back. There's this sunflower that grew in that spot where I was sitting on this log. And I'm like, oh my gosh, one of those little sunflower seeds, when they pickpocketed me, actually grew into a sunflower in that spot. And it's on a beach. It's like all sand. And then this random sunflower in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, how that little sunflower seed becomes that beautiful sunflower facing the lake, big yellow face on it with leaves. That's a magic trick. Turning that little seed, but it shows that hidden force behind it, right? So there's many examples about this that we can think about, but we can also look at just the astronomy of what's going on as well, right? Gravity pulls meteorites towards the Earth, right? Gravity. Why doesn't gravity pull the Earth into the sun? Joel, I'm asking you. Why doesn't gravity pull the Earth into the sun?
Because all things are harmoniously held as they need to be, and right action, right harmony. I believe that harmony is law, which this morning seemed to be not the case, but I believe that to be the case.
Our perception can't always see the harmony. Our perception might be limited, perhaps.
But nevertheless, law is law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just like we like to do crosswords and puzzles and all these different things, we like the idea of gaining increasing levels of understanding so we can see the harmony in everything. That's part of the fun of the game, I guess, eh?
For sure.
It's almost like a human life is like the ultimate like mystery game, escape room type of fun game, group project as it is here tonight, right? Some people might say it's the centrifugal force, like being whipped around like a lasso that keeps the Earth from going into the sun. But then with centrifugal force and the momentum of it, what's to stop it from sending Earth way out into deep space, flinging it around, and then boom, off it goes, right? There's some sort of a perfect balance to this. I went to an astronomy workshop one night downtown Toronto just to expand my perspectives and take courses I would otherwise not take and stuff. And this guy was talking and he was saying that planet Jupiter, has such a strong gravitational pull that it vacuum sucks in all the meteorites that are entering our solar system, most of them, into itself. And if it wasn't for Jupiter, Earth would be pummeled with like an apocalyptic level of meteorites. We have no idea. You couldn't have humans inhabit Earth without planet Jupiter. It actually makes it so Earth can be inhabited by human beings. Yet we take Jupiter for granted. You know?
That's probably why there's so many moons there. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's but
Orbited.
Jupiter has been supporting you your whole life. I've realized in my life that the biggest weakness I have, if you were to ask me in a job interview, I'd say ingratitude. And I think that's the most honest answer I can give. I don't even have the mental capability to be grateful for all the things that I really should be grateful for. All the things that support me in all the different ways. I don't even have the capacity to be grateful in a fair way. Right?
You do. It's just going to take a while.
Yeah. So that's my answer. If you're doing a job interview, ingratitude, you know, I think honestly, how's the sun not burning out, Joel? Like, it's a fire, isn't it? And it maintains a perfect circle, just staying there in space.
And we just happen to be in the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives us heat and light and other necessities and vitamin D. And
and the Earth is off axis so that we get 4 seasons.
Yeah. And do we ever repay the sun?
Or fill the gas tank back up?
Exactly. You know, there's this purposeful cosmic dance with the precise adjustment of all these different universal forces in every atom, right? And, you know, the supreme intelligence is ceaselessly working miracles all around us. We take it for granted. We assume we're the doer. That's egotism, right? But it definitely appears through logical exploration that the universe is the result of a purposeful design by a master builder. How could it not be? Right? It's an engineering marvel with mathematical harmony. Right? Even the slightest departure on all of the given values would spell the end of life. Right? It would just be like gas and static. Just a few degrees this way and that. You know, there's this evidence of the handiwork in everything. Just shaping, chiseling, the creativity behind living things. You know, and I'm always looking for, you know, for me, one of the things I'm appreciating now is the woodpecker. Okay? Like, who designed the woodpecker? Patty loves the woodpecker. Okay? So, first of all the guys are gingers, redheads. And they kind of have these punky red hairstyles, which is so cute. That's how we tell the boys from the girls. And then they just bang their heads on stuff. And they got their tongue wraps around their brain to cushion them. So they do this head banging thing, which is kind of cool. Like, this is all an intentional design. And it's kind of entertaining. And if you get to meet them up cute, I met one today and it was super cute and sweet. I met a lot in the past week. I don't know why. Woodpeckers are the theme of the week for me. Then you can really appreciate that there's and then they got like these checkered wings, almost looks like a checkered board. It's really cute, all of it. And I think the checkered wings are just for fun, you know, like, but there's all of these things happening. And I'm always kind of looking for these little moments in which you can see that a master architect in creation is being kind of crafty and fun. One of my favorite things is the raccoon tail. It's ringed. To me, I don't see a purpose in having a ringed tail other than just looking fun. You know, I could be wrong, but I think there's just this sense of just doing things for fun. Like, how do you like that? Whoop. It's like after I'm done with the little teddy bear ears and the little grabby hands and the little mask face and the cute little everything. And then all of a sudden we got, a ringed tail, finishing touch. There we go, right? To me, it just shows that this supreme intelligent force really has a charming sense of humor. It's probably where we get it from, right? So, but you can look for it, and even like the racing stripes on a chipmunk, so cute. You know, and how they stuff things in their cheeks. Like, all animals do different things, but the stuffing things and having massive fun cheeks full of food is so hilarious to me. Like, everything's got its own unique design. And it's all kind of doing its thing in life, but there's all these like creative moments. So let's talk about this. What do you think are the benefits of playing hide and seek with your awareness and looking for that intentional, intelligent support in your daily life? What do you think are the best possible outcomes? Who has
For me,
thoughts on this? Playing hide and go seek.
for me, it's trust and not having to worry about things. And
Yeah,
just
trust.
knowing that even when things hit the fan, that there's always a support network that could do much better than I could ever possibly do myself, which does bring tremendous reassurance and peace when, from a material perspective, things look like chaos.
Absolutely. So having that deep sense of calm, inner peace, trusting the universe, trusting the process, believing that life happens for you, not to you. Right? Patty, thoughts on the playing divine hide and seek, best possible outcomes?
Well, I went through this with you back in March, and your willingness to just hop on at a moment's notice when I was in the middle of a sheer crisis meltdown because my business platform that I had just completely crumbled after 20 years. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm like, what's happening here? And so here we are 6-7 months out. And this particular, session has, changed my entire paradigm. I'm a pastor. So I preach faith. And yet I didn't have the faith that I needed at the level that I needed it back then. So I see this as a way in which we're removing ego. I built this business from the ground up 20 some years. What now is gone in a heartbeat. So you take the element of yourself out of this. So the ego's removed, and you put properly in place that which is, as Chris just noted, the supreme architect of the universe, God, and that this is a spirit that in an energy that in a divine existence of something greater than ourselves that's moving in and through all of us and in this world and out of this world, right?
And I love it. And I love how one of the things that I talk about with this subject is there's a big difference, especially in the religious circles, between knowing about God and then knowing God personally, right? So, because a lot of people know everything about God and they can reference everything, but they still experience fear and anxiety, right? And uncertainty, right? So I believe that, a lot of this belief is a good starting point, but then we should realize truth through our own experience, because a lot of people they've been said to be like theological. Sometimes we can parrot these ideas and repeat beautiful concepts, but it doesn't match up to our corresponding experience of reality, and it's like, how do we close that gap?
Well, and don't forget, I lost my husband to cancer. Beautiful marriage, and how it ended was just horrific to me. But I know that if he's no longer God's best for me, then I can't wait to see who is. So if I can have that same mindset in this capacity, why was I not able to hit it over here and transfer that into this other area of my life? And my ego was sitting in the middle of it.
And that's where I love the example of the love of the supreme intelligence is like sunshine coming through stained glass. And it's like, you know what? It's going to keep coming. You can't stop it from showing up in your life. Many different people coming in random moments and times and everything else. And it's just paying attention to it more and more. And it's like, oh my gosh, it hasn't stopped. It's just coming in many different forms. I love it. Excellent. Charmaine, do you have any thoughts? You can say pass if you want.
No, I'm good. I think we all see moments like this in our life, but you're right. It is the whole hide and seek element. We have to consciously put into our heads and remember and recognize it repeatedly, because that's the challenge. It's not that we don't see it. It's not that we can't stop in a moment and see that it's there. But the hard part with faith is reminding yourself of that when you're struggling, because I think that's always where the challenge comes in. It's easy in moments when you're not struggling, but when you are, you have to kind of go back to that. I talk myself through it. I have to go back and replay things in my head and talk myself through the experiences. And the other thing too, I think, we've all had moments where someone came into our life at the exact right moment, exactly when we needed them. But I think we also recognize we can't make that happen. And so in that sense, there's also, it's something we can't control. And so you're waiting on that. And so that's also where some patience comes in. And patience is also not something that's easy. So, you have to remind yourself that those things do come, but you also have to be patient and wait for it.
Love it. Love it. And I'll share with you my in the moment application for this and how I handle everything. Absolutely. Chris, do you have any thoughts? His connection might not be good there right now. So
I don't think I'm here.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, what I was thinking about this type of hide and seek is that this is like pretty much like when I talk about like combinations. Certain things have to be open and certain things to be closed in order to guide you in a particular direction. If the ultimate architect opened up every opportunity and you saw every opportunity, everything that was available to you, you'd get pulled in too many directions and not the direction that he would want you to go in. So by allowing you to see certain things and blinding you from other things, not being able to see those things, that's just as important, because you may end up going in a direction that ultimately you would not be happy that you found yourself with, or would not hit, I'm saying the milestones, to hit the areas that they want you to be in that place, in that time. Like I talk about how everything had to line up to create a certain situation. If I saw other opportunities, or if I went to another restaurant because they have a better pie than the other place did, I would not have been there. So it was important for the architect to close off other things. Okay, go one more round, go take one more look. Or like I said, going to that hotel, make sure you stay focused. And him, all right, don't pay attention to your family. Look in this direction, not towards your kids, but in that direction. All those on and off things, those zeros and ones, had to balance in such a way to make those things happen. And all of our lives, all those zeros and ones happened. Me meeting Marge at UP Dillard, her finding me. All those ones and zeros had to have been positioned in a certain way to make that happen. This group, all those zeros and ones had to be pointed in a particular direction to make this happen. And also, to take it another level, it's like three-dimensional chess. My zeros and ones running over the place. Brendan does, Patty does, Joel does, Charmaine does, Celine does, everybody does. Everybody on this planet, including the animals, have their zeros and ones working in certain directions and interconnected with other people's zeros and ones. Now, how is that for complicated? But yet, it all manages to flow together correctly, like a well-constructed watch. Just like Joel was talking about the watchmaker who could make a mechanical watch. All those pieces have to work correctly in order to have that happen. Yeah.
All the cogs. There can't be a watch without a watchmaker. I love it because you talk about, even sometimes how we're not even getting what we want. So sometimes we can get something better. It's like the delays are not denials in life. Sometimes we don't get what we want when we want it, the inner peace or whatever, but that's not a denial. Sometimes it's a good thing when we don't get what we want. It increases motivation. It opens us up to the direction we're meant to go, new opportunities and experiences that benefit us most in the long term. We can't see across all space and time. We have to trust that the same supreme intelligence that we trust to beat our heart and breathe us while our body is sleeping, so we wake up in the morning alive, that we can trust it to orchestrate across all space and time external events to serve our greatest benefit. We just have to assume that it's all happening for us, right? Give benefit to the doubt, to the divine producer behind this ultimate reality show, right?
But I also want to make one other point, like what Patty was talking about. It is hard to see, sometimes hard to see these things when you're in the fog of war, when those things are happening to you, when you're in the thick of that, when you're having major life changes, not just preferences changing, but major transitions in your life or major crises that occur. This is fun to talk about on a Monday night when not much is going on right now. But when that disaster happens or when that change happens, you're not as in tune to those selections as much because your emotions are really the ones running the show at that point. And it makes it much more difficult.
I'm going to talk about that in 2 seconds. So here, I love it. I love it. Perfect. And Charmaine brings up, yeah, this is great, but how do we put this into practical play in a very simplistic way? And then you're talking about, yeah, but what about in the moment when it doesn't look like it's going to make sense? So here's basically, I consider it the most powerful mental toughness tool. Okay. Out of any mental toughness wisdom tool you can ever do, this one beats Game Changer. Okay. What's good? What can be learned? How can you make it better? This one beats it because this is my go-to if I ever need it. All right. In order for it to work, you have to play hide and seek first. If you don't play enough hide and seek, it won't work. All right. Is there a creator? Yes or no? That's question one. The answer should be at this point, if we played hide and seek, yeah, there is. Is the creator loving? Yes, of course. Can we, and if we need to, we can reinforce all the examples and evidence of the creator's love. Is the creator intelligent? Yes, of course. And if we need to, we can reinforce all the examples and evidence. So no matter what is going on in life, if there's a creator and it's loving and intelligent, won't it take care of its creation? Done. The voice inside us that says no is the ego, thinking that we can judge. We don't see across all space and time. It is the ego that makes us think that we have to understand it, that there's a necessity to understand how it all works out. But let me ask you this. Have you ever watched a movie that was so predictable and it just made you bored to tears and you wanted to pull your tongue out and strangle yourself with it? How would you like your life reality to be that predictable movie? Deep down, you don't truly want to understand it. I would submit that to you. That would remove part of the magic and mystery of the human life experience. And we don't have to have all the answers in this lifetime to all the things that happen in our lifetime. Save some answers for the afterlife when this performance is over. We got to leave some answers. So, once again, is there a creator? Is the creator loving? Is the creator intelligent? Then won't the creator take care of its creation? Right? For me, the other day when that whole huge swarm of bees came over the treetops, I was like, I'm cool. There's a creator. It's loving and intelligent. And I'm getting an intuition right now that I could chill with this bee swarm. And then I got an intuition to kiss the bee. And I got an intuition to film it, to prove it happened. And I posted it for all you guys to see, right? The other day, I got an intuition to call over a woodpecker and it landed on my hand. And I showed it to my wife and I'm like, what do you think of this? She's like, nice. I'm like, that's such an underreaction. Like most people will be like, that's crazy. But she's seen so many things now that it doesn't impress her anymore. Like call the woodpecker over from a tree and it's hanging out of my fingers and you don't even really care. Most people would drop their jaw if they saw that. She's just
I can't do that.
You haven't tried, have you? Wait till you get the intuition and you roll with it. It's like, call that bird over. Done, right? So.
But we all think Brendan can do anything now, so we aren't impressed that he can do it. We'd be impressed if we could, right? That's the problem.
Oh, okay. So if I'm doing anything, I'm just reflecting your higher potential through this body vehicle. That's it, because you have the same inherited potential I do, because you are also a child of the supreme intelligence that designed you just as it designed me. And just like being waves on the ocean, we are all waves of the same ocean. Every wave contains the same stuff that's in all the other waves in the ocean, right? So that supreme intelligence is like the ocean that's giving rise to those waves. And that's the way to look at it. That's the way if somebody wanted me to explain God, say, yeah, we're like waves and God's like the ocean. Some people get confused. Their ego says, I am God. And I'm like, that's like the wave saying, I am the ocean. Doesn't it kind of work the other way around? You know, like Because I know that's very popular in New Age spiritual circles. You're God. No, God is in me, just like the ocean's in the wave, right? But I don't know if that idea is going to serve you as well. So,
One in quality, not in quantity.
if these questions should bring you to a 0 out of 10 on stress on any situation. Is there a creator? Is it loving? Is it intelligent? It'll take care of its creation. If it doesn't bring you to a 0 out of 10, therein lies your opportunity to cultivate faith, positive faith. There's your opportunity to improve your spiritual practice, whatever it is. Because if it's not yielding you the results, you shouldn't have indifference towards the results of your spiritual practice. You should have a high standard on it. My spiritual practice should bring me inner peace completely in the face of disaster. Right? That's the standard we should all have. Too often, people, are really investing a lot of time and effort in spiritual pursuits and living disempowered lives. It's like, don't settle for that. There is a way to get what you want. Explore different paths if you must. Or, one of the things is with this kind of wisdom, just like any wisdom, we need it in the right dosage. So sometimes we need to just correct more evidence of hide and seek. Wisdom is like medicine. We need to have it in the right dosage. We need to have it in the right frequency. Some people we might say they've gone off their meds because they've gone crazy. If you don't play divine hide and seek and pay attention to the supreme intelligence, you will go crazy in this world. If you become too worldly, you will go crazy, because this world is really the insane asylum of the universe. You don't go off your meds. Take in that wisdom of self-realization, right? And also, for me, I try to play this game twice a day, just a little bit, hide and seek twice a day. Okay, where did the supreme intelligence show up? But most importantly, let go of things you don't understand. Let go of it. Be like a child. Okay, let go of the necessity to understand and see how this is all going to work out. Let go of that. Across all space and time, we only know a tiny fraction of everything as a human being. We don't have the capacity to see how it all fits together in the end, just like it all fits together and works together on the smallest microscopic level, right? Do you think anything that's happening in the world and universe is happening outside the awareness of this supreme intelligence? It's with us wherever we go, right? So I think to be anxious and fearful is a form of doubt against the supreme intelligence. It means you're losing at hide and seek, oftentimes because we confuse our preferences for realistic expectations for life. That's ego, thinking whatever we prefer should be what happens. It better not rain today because I'm going hiking. I better get that job promotion because I deserve it. It's all these things where we take our preferences and make them expectations. People better not lie to me because I always keep my promises. We have to be willing to accept not everything's going to make sense. Once again, save some answers for the afterlife. And when you develop this attitude, you can have radical acceptance. But always test yourself. Here's how you can assess yourself. Does your faith crumble when your preferences aren't met? For example, does your faith crumble when your preferences aren't met? When it seems like the world is breaking apart, do you start to lose faith? Do you start to experience stress and anxiety? That can be a good indicator of where you're at in your development with positive faith. Okay? So just keep going out there and playing hide and seek in all things. Get that personal connection with the supreme intelligence. Because what you don't notice does not exist in your reality, right? So it's kind of like there's that old example, take a look around the room for everything you can see that is red. Okay, now close your eyes. Now, what were all the things that were yellow? And you're like, I don't know, I was only looking for red things. If you're not paying attention to it, the supreme intelligence really exists very small in your reality. And you think you've been betrayed by it. If it exists, it betrayed me. Where was it? It wasn't supporting me. It's that whole story about footsteps. Have you all heard that story about footsteps? So, Charmaine, have you heard it? It's oftentimes, it's something that people will, it kind of expresses the attitude of those people that are mad at God, or those people that have resistance to their faith. And basically it's this story like, and it has to do with this person has a dream, and they dream that they're walking side by side with the creator, God, the supreme intelligence, whatever you want to call it, right? And then, there's flashes of their life going across the sky. And then each scene of their life, they notice two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to them and one belonging to the creator. But then, after the last scene flashes, they look back on all the footprints in the sand and they kind of notice a pattern. They notice that sometimes there was only one set of footprints, and it was during all the lowest, unhappiest, most unfortunate moments of their life. They're like, well, there's only one set of footprints during those moments of my life, right? And it's like, what gives? So it kind of bothers them, and they asked the creator about it. They said, I noticed that during the most troubled times, I don't understand why when I needed you most, you left me, and it's only my footprints. And then the creator replies, I love you. I've loved you through all the ages. I love you now. I love you more than you can ever know and measure. And I'll love you for all eternity. And during those times of trial and suffering, when you saw only one set of footprints, it's because I was carrying you. And think about it. Even during those times when we didn't care enough about ourselves and our own life, something was still beating our hearts, digesting our food, breathing us as we sleep, putting love for us in the hearts of other people, putting wisdom for us in the minds of other people, being able to serve us in all these different ways. It was still happening, right? So I think and I love that poem because it pretty much sums up the value and attitude we can have that can really help us play hide and seek. So if you don't notice it, doesn't exist in your reality. So don't consider all these events of your life as natural and inevitable. Rarely do people appreciate the skill of the divine director. Okay. And a lot of us, even though we're playing, we take on these flesh suits and these human identities, these names that we get given that are like rumors. Our parents started these rumors. They started the rumor, my name's Brendan Fox and whatever. We take on these characters when we incarnate here, but we're like actors in a movie, and we forgot who we were before we started playing these roles, right? And then we're trying to change the script on the producer. We're like, excuse me, Mr. Producer. This person should have said yes when I asked them out on a date because I got all the signs and I really liked them and I deserve this now. And they're like, Mr. Producer, these people shouldn't have let me down because I really needed them to pull through. We start to rewrite the script, right? Like that's ego, really, is saying that we know a better way. Right? Rarely do people appreciate the skill of the divine director. Make it a game to find the unseen hand in all things. We're not hiding from the supreme intelligence, or it's not hiding from us. We're hiding from them. That's what's going on with our awareness. It's really the other way around. They're everywhere. You just pay attention to it. Just play the game. Everything is just a manifestation of this. And I think really, when it all comes down to it, this is just, it's really just like a story, all of this creation. I think it's really just a love story between creation and it's the creator and its creation. And the creator is just acting like a secret admirer, loving you more than you know, more often than you know, in more ways than you know. And the more you pay attention to this, the more you realize that the love of the creator is the only reality, that's really it. And that's the game. And when you realize that, I feel like you're there on this game. So this is divine hide and seek. A lot of the ideas I expressed tonight aren't really my own. Credit would go to Paramahansa Yogananda. He was an Indian spiritual master, authored Autobiography of a Yogi. His home lessons, the self-realization fellowship lessons, are where he talked about the importance of all of this. A lot of these examples come from him. I didn't bother referencing him on everything. Instead, I'll just reference him for all of tonight's conversation. Just say that all credit goes to Yogananda, who lived 60 years ago and died. And a lot of these ideas he had shared during his time on earth. And I'm just sharing his wisdom. And I feel like I put a cute little hide and seek game to it, but really he was talking about the importance of this is one of the most important things you can devote your energy and focus to in life. And then once you do this first, everything else comes easier. You know, you find the creator or God first, and then everything else comes after, because then you're centered in your inner peace and everything else. So, and that's why I think it's one of the most important mental toughness drills that we can do. Okay. Any concluding thoughts on tonight's conversation? Who wants to go first?
I do.
Concluding thoughts.
Steve wrote that he's sorry that he missed us because he was helping somebody out to deliver a mattress. But then he said, and as you all know, he had plumbing issues last few weeks. And he said, I had a plumbing session that went better than all the others. And I even had a flash of inspiration before I did it. I believe that went from the divine.
Love it. Love it.
So Steve was here.
Love it. Love it. You know what's really funny? I don't know if Steve will ever watch this recording. I think one of the ways the divine works through us is through dreams. Have any of you ever had a premonition dream? Okay, perfect. Perfect. And I don't think I've revealed this before, and my wife knows this, is that I had a premonition dream about this group. And then, and it's because I had a premonition dream about one individual in this group. And then met that individual, and I'm like, this was the dream. And I told my wife, I'm like, and I had it already written down. And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here, so we'll just roll with it. But yeah, and I've had a few premonition dreams in my life. It's kind of a really awesome experience when it happens. Most of the time, it seems too crazy that it would ever happen as literal as it happened in the dream, because I just, dreams can just seem like craziness. And it's like, oh my gosh, my life actually became that craziness that I thought was just this, right? And I think premonition dreams are ways of us being reminded that all the wisdom we really need on the truth and reality and future and everything is actually inside us. We don't need to go looking for it necessarily in books and outside us, because if you have premonition dreams, it's showing that the power of access to all wisdom is inside you. And that was kind of the biggest lesson, because I was like, what's the point on premonition dreams? Right? So awesome. Concluding remarks. Joel, concluding remarks?
I love all the above. For me, it's just a reminder about coincidences, because when I do the Tony Robbins priming, that's one of the things that he just kind of throws in there, is to remember a coincidence. And I think like over time, the more I've done that, I've been able to trace like pretty much almost anything important that's happened in my life back to, even through like some of the worst experiences, to realize how those, if I hadn't had those, I wouldn't have been like exactly where I needed to be. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you're in those, you're like, why is this happening to me? This, the world is ending. This is terrible. And I've had my share of like, really crappy stuff happen, but it's, when you look at it as it's really just divine guidance and care and interaction, leading us gently always to where we need to be. It's really cool to acknowledge that. And it's interesting you mentioned the premonition dreams. Sometimes for me, it's more of like deja vu when you're like, wait, I've already experienced this and I know how it's going to unfold, and this is cool. But yeah, I wholeheartedly believe there's only one mind, and that we're all, expressions of that one, in individual forms of that expression. But we all have that same connection, and that's helped me in life to also look at everyone else that I meet, to know that we are all, we're all family. Like, I believe that when you have like wars and conflicts and all these things, it's the root cause is that there's separation. There's me and mine, and you and yours, and you see this way and I see this way. And the more that I learn to, to take anybody that I come across and see like, yeah, that's my sister, that's my brother, my mother, my father. like when you see that as family, then you treat them as family, and that's the kind of perspective that leads to love and enlargement and growth and kindness and helping each other. So yeah, this is a very great topic of interest, and look forward to sharing the recording with my 10-year-old son, who he's around us a lot, and we my wife and I, and even my daughters, see the divine presence that shows up in all the little things that have been discussed here. But he's a very analytical thinker, and I think it'll be great for him to hear the first part of this discussion, just to even recognize how we couldn't, beyond our wildest dreams, create something like that. Even the moon. Like, if we didn't have a moon, there wouldn't be any tidal influence. Like, it's all perfectly working. So yeah, I'm grateful for the conversation and the reminder to acknowledge more, because I feel like the more that we tune into gratitude for all that is, the open fount that's just constantly pouring forth abundance, the more that we see it, and the more that we're blessed and are able to help others. So it's a good reminder for gratitude too.
Love it. And lots of great points there. I love the point of one world family, because really we're all waves of the same ocean behind it all, and that ocean being the supreme intelligence. I think also with the point you expressed before that, I have some simple wisdom I like to remind people when it seems like everything's falling apart. It's this: don't judge the moment. No matter how bad things seem in the moment, no matter how much it seems like things are falling apart, sometimes good things fall apart so something better can come together, right? Don't judge the moment. That's once again where our ego gets us, and we judge the moment. It's like if you judge the moment in any movie, you're like, oh no, Frodo and Samwise aren't friends anymore. Like, this Lord of the Rings is a disaster. It's like, don't judge the moment. Like, they're gonna be even better friends after this. Like, come on. That's what we do in our own lives. Every time there's a plot twist, we think, the producer screwed it up. And the producer's like, you'd be so bored if this was all just happiness and love the whole time, right? So don't judge the moment. That's one of them. I live by that. I remind people of that so often, and they judge too soon, and all these kinds of things. So, and love that you're going to be sharing it. And also we're sharing this recording with who knows how many other people. It'll be posted on YouTube, and I can always retransfer it if any of you want it on your computer to share with whoever. So, Charmaine, closing thoughts?
Yeah, I've shared it here a couple of times before about my broken arm and just all of the blessings that kind of came out of that. And I think sometimes talking about it like hide and seek, kind of like a game. Sometimes for me, the game is finding all of the way things connect together. So, in the moment, of course, I had no idea what was going to come out of that. But, we had the whole thing with where I was suddenly able to help my parents install their toilet because of all the sequence of events that happened there. I was able to help my sister-in-law feel more connected to part of our family. I had this really great parallel experience, going to the ER then versus when I'd gone with my husband a few years before. There was just all these rewarding pieces, and I don't even view it as a bad experience. I really don't. There was a lot of blessings that came out. Even at work, there was the whole thing at work too, where I was kind of being able to disconnect from some of that and let other people take on some of that burden, and learning how to, I had a reason to push them to do it, because before I could have asked them to, but then they wouldn't do it. And now I had a reason, and they had some guilt associated where they would do it, so there was all kinds of good stuff that came out of it. So it's one of those things I didn't know in the moment, but you kind of have to wait, and then you watch for it, and you can make a game out of finding all of the goodness in it.
I love it. And awesome point. Chris, any closing remarks?
Well, normally I have something very profound to say at this point, but I trust that you all know me well enough to know what I'm going to already say, so I won't have to say anything. And there's my hide and seek game for everybody for the week.
All right. Chris is speechless. So here's the thing with hide and seek. This is how you cultivate positive faith. But you have to get the dosage down and the frequency down to really win at the game. You have to really want to find the supreme intelligence. You have to apply the right effort to it. You can't just say, oh, I get it. That's it. That's kind of like just an intellectual understanding. I get this. It's the hide and seek. It's like, no, you got to go out there and play it now. The more you play it, the more it's going to play back with you. That's what I've realized. And that's where some of the coolest stuff can happen. It's like, now that you're paying attention, we're going to do some really cool stuff. Right. And that's part of the fun of playing the game. And at the end of the day, Yogananda said that everything in life is either for our entertainment or our education. That's it. So a lot of this stuff is just for our fun. And part of the fun is just being in it together. We're all just figuring out the deepest secrets of the life in the universe together. But being it with a group across great lengths of many miles over the internet and everything else, like, it's a really cool experience to be able to play this game of hide and seek with a group of people like yourselves.
And also, Brandon, you have to realize that this works like a muscle. The more you use it, the better you get at it. Like, I developed parking theories because I had a girlfriend who lived in downtown Boston. It was hard to find a spot. So I was always focused on finding a spot. Now I'm really good at finding parking everywhere. So it's just like a muscle. So when you look for those signals and you see them more frequently, you get better at it. And you find different signals. And it builds. And you find different things from different angles all of a sudden. But you're right, it works just like a muscle.
And imagine realizing that you have this eternal friend that is super 10 out of 10 loving and wise and looking out for your best interest. And like a secret admirer, they're doing all these fun little things in your life. Imagine how the way you look at life will change. You know, you could look at life as a mysterious gift from your eternal best friend.
Me, my wife in the afterlife.
And then start to live with that awareness. You know? All right.
Oh, it's helped me out tremendously. Absolutely. It's the same relationship. It's just in a different form, just in a different medium.
Okay, let's do this. Count of 3, friends forever, enemies for never. Group hug and we're out. All right? Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Friends forever.
Forever.
Group hug.
Have a great week.
Have a good week.
Love you guys.
Have a great week, everybody. See you Monday.
Be blessed.